Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Marion de Marcillac, and I'm head of climate product at MSCI. I would like to introduce you to the concept of net zero. This is very much a buzzword these days. What you're seeing in these charts are the global warming projections coming from Climate Action Tracker. This shows the amount of global greenhouse gas emission that we emit per year. Today, we are emitting approximately 50 gigaton of CO2 per year. And based on current policy, which is the trend in dark blue, you can see that we're tracking toward a global warming of 2.7 or 3.1 degree by 2100. To be consistent with the 1.5 degree trajectory, the amount of greenhouse gas emission will need to drop to roughly 25 gigaton per year by 2030. And then it will need to trend towards zero around 2050. The way that we're currently tracking, there is a direct impact of climate change in terms of physical risks. We are already seeing more frequent and more severe extreme weather events such as hurricanes, sea level rise, changing precipitation that create flooding, or heat waves as currently experienced in North America. This is then consequently impacting the ecosystem and agriculture as well. Another good example of this is the Summer of the Extreme in 2017, which had a number of extreme weather events like the Hurricane Harvey in the US or extreme heat in the south of Europe, which participated to massive wildfire in Portugal. There was also very strong flooding in Germany. As I said, we're already seeing these events increasing, and we can expect to see more of those if global warming continues to rise. So where is the concept of net zero coming from? The goal of the Paris Agreement is to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees, preferably to 1.5 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels. And when we say global warming, it's always by the end of the century, i.e. in 2100. The 1.5 degree objective was raised by the number of countries and stakeholders during the 21st UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, also known as COP21, which happened in Paris in 2015. In October 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC as we call it, which is the body of climate science generating research and analysis feeding into the policy discussion during the climate change conferences, published a special report on global warming of 1.5 degree. This report looked at different scenarios, and what you're seeing in this slide is one of the main charts from that paper. According to the IPCC, we're currently tracking more towards a global warming of 3 degrees, as we've seen. And in all pathways that are limiting global warming to 1.5 degree, the amount of greenhouse gas emission falls substantially by 2030. You can also see that in all scenarios, they all reduce to zero around 2050. So what that means is that being net zero is similar to saying that you're actually aligned with the Paris Agreement, which in turn means that we want to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees, preferably 1.5 degree, compared to pre-industrial levels. In short, 1.5 degree is the end goal, and getting to net zero by 2050 is a journey. And investors need solutions and tools to assist in this journey to reach the goal. Basically, the international dialogue on climate change has shifted from a focus on carbon budget, consistent with the Paris Agreement, to a focus on achieving net zero emission by 2050, in keeping with the IPCC modeling of how to limit global warming to 1.5 degree. And this shift signals an increased urgency on reducing emission, both direct and indirect, to zero in all economic sectors. This chart shows another illustration of where we are today with respect to Paris Agreement targets. As I mentioned before, we're currently tracking to a 3 degree world, and we need to get to 1.5 degree. And here in the middle column, we're actually showing the difference that a warming of 1.5 degree versus a 3 degree warming would mean in terms of impact to the planet. You can see that the physical impact, for example, will vary extensively. In particular, the amount of sea level rise will differ significantly. And on the right side, we're showing the challenges this represent for investors, depending on which degree of warming we're targeting. For example, targeting a world in which we would be aligned with a 1.5 degree trajectory at the bottom right, you see that the challenge would be quite substantial for investors. If you were to focus on companies that are aligned with a 1.5 degree trajectory today, you would need to reduce your investment universe to about 10%. That's also why there is this idea of the journey to the 1.5 degree. As we're not there yet, we need all players to transition in the coming years, and investors have an important role to play in making sure this shift is happening amongst the companies they're invested in, via engagement in particular. Indeed, capital has a crucial role to play in this net zero revolution. We at MSCI, we announced our own net zero target this year, and associated with that, we published a report called The Role of Capital in the Net Zero Revolution. As we've seen earlier, scientific experts have developed scenarios to illustrate potential pathway for the global economy to move towards a net zero economy. And they concur that the long-term solution to minimize cost, basically humanity's best outcome, is to achieve net zero as quickly as possible and no later than 2050. How we measure progress towards meeting this goal is critical. MSCI ACWI IMI, which includes approximately 9,000 public companies, reflects the investors' sphere of influence on the public equity markets. And it's a very natural starting point to measure the pace of the transition to the net zero economy and to see how we are tracking over time. In this chart, the orange line represents the global emission and the blue line represents the emissions from the constituents of MSCI ACWI IMI. Each one needs to reduce on an average rate of 10% a year between now and 2050. And through engagement and voting, investors have a direct and powerful influence in companies. Going forward, we will be publishing this net zero tracker on a quarterly basis. What I wanted to illustrate here is that there's a lot of momentum pushing for a net zero commitment and climate disclosure and scenario analysis. This is coming from various stakeholders, and I want to provide a high-level overview of the different dimension and pressure points that are coming towards investors. The COP26 Private Finance Hub is led by Matt Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, who is now the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance. Throughout the last 18 months, the Private Finance Hub has published a number of papers illustrating how they're expecting climate disclosure to become mandatory everywhere. This is something we are already seeing in a number of countries, in the UK and New Zealand, for example, and there is a lot of momentum coming from the European Union as well. Another factor that is driving a lot of this momentum are the Net Zero Alliance, starting with the Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance, which was created in September 2019 by the Net Zero and was followed closely by the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative, the Net Zero Banking Alliance, the Net Zero Insurance Alliance. All those alliances are providing guidance in terms of what it is that capital market participants need to do if they want to transition to net zero. The Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance, for example, published a target setting protocol a few months ago that is now serving as a kind of guidepost in terms of levers investors can play on. The Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, the TCFD, also continues to be very active. A few weeks ago, the TCFD published a consultation on climate metrics. And one of the things we expect is that they will review their framework in the coming months, probably shortly before COP26, and clarify the climate metrics that they expect companies to report on. Lastly, I want to mention the Network for Greening the Financial System, the NGFS, another acronym. It is a group of large central banks, and they're publishing information clarifying what is expected when running climate stress tests. They have recently published new recommendations in terms of which scenarios to use. If you have any questions or would like to take a deeper dive, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.